Well, hello there. It's another day. I'm Jim Harrington.
And I am Bill Knight, the Friday program, as we slip and slide into the weekend and slip and slide around the news that's going on. I guess the big story out there is the fight between Musk and Trump.
Yeah.
And there's, I don't know how I feel about it. On one hand, you got to sit there and go, well, maybe they're staging something.
Well.
Maybe this is all. But then again, maybe they just. But my true feeling on it is, I'll tell you right now, is that, you got two guys working closely together on a project that they feel very important, or that's very important. And they're both getting attacked. I mean, slimed constantly. At some point in time, you step back, you shake it all off, and you lash back. But you lash out at everybody, even like in a relationship. You'll lash out at home, at your wife, and it's really nothing that she did, or she lashes out at you, and it's nothing you did. But the sum total of all just the crap that's thrown at you kind of gets to you, and you react, and then you start this chain of events that's just hard to stop.
Well, I got some thoughts on this, too, and I know what you're talking about, and I kind of agree. Before we get into the details, the nitty-gritty, maybe we should pause for a moment, huh?
Let's pause and ask everyone to like and share. Very important thing for you to do, because we did switch platforms. Yes, we know you're still there, and a lot of people out there, a lot of people are going, where'd they go? And a lot of people still don't know about it. So like and share. It's always a healthy thing to do.
Wake up on the right side with Right Side Coffee.
Available at rightsideshop.com. Okay, we're back, and a lot to talk about. Elon Musk and Donald Trump having a bit of a feud. And I did a lot of thinking about this.
right.
It's in the news. Everybody kind of jumps to a conclusion. Everyone thinks, oh, they're having a spat. They're that's it. Now they'll never be friends again.
No.
I don't think so. But what's interesting, Bill, I don't know whether you heard about this. I haven't heard anybody mention this. I heard, for example, a talk show I listened to. As I prep for the show, I have a talk show in the background and out of Boston. And the host, he's walking towards the dire general opinion that it's all over. He doesn't see beyond the surface on this particular story. But there are other things that I found online yesterday which I thought were interesting. Apparently, Eric Swalwell, as soon as he heard that Elon had released an X post that said, release the Epstein files, you're going to find out that Donald Trump's involved.
Yeah, I saw that.
He implied that, all right? But then he released a picture of Donald Trump with NFL cheerleaders from 1992, which has been around forever. That picture's been out many, many times. Trump has talked about it. Trump has never said he doesn't know Jeffrey Epstein. He's absolutely admitted that he knows Jeffrey Epstein. He admitted that he actually took a ride on Jeffrey Epstein's airplane from Palm Beach to New York when his plane was being serviced. And he also told us being his supporters, that he threw Jeffrey Epstein out of Mar-a-Lago. You got to go. You're done. And because he was hitting on one of the employees of Mar-a-Lago. And here's what I wanted to read to you. Swalwell said, Eric Swalwell, Democratic goon, he writes, release the Epstein files, capital letters, now. And a response to that comes from Hillary Clinton. Listen to her response. Sleep well tonight, Eric. Sleep well tonight, Eric. Now, was she saying, shut up, Eric? What are you doing, Eric? Sleep well tonight. Then supposedly, this says Democrats. I don't know whether it's the Democratic Party or whether it's somebody who has that handle, but they wrote, kill the bill and release the Epstein files. This is from the Democrats. Kill the bill, that means the big, beautiful bill, and release the Epstein files. Right below that, Hillary Clinton responds, "What the F?" Except she didn't say just F. What the F? Now, Hillary is doing more responding in these X responses than I've heard her, respond to anything.
Wait a minute now.
Yeah.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, let's just go back to the bromance there that is falling apart. And let's say it's a little bit of frustration from both sides getting attacked, and to where you got this big beautiful bill that's way too big with a lot of crap in it and needs to be a smaller, refined, beautiful bill, still covering the things that we got to cover. But the Epstein files, what was everybody mad about? Kash Patel coming in. And, Bongino coming in, well, there's no story here. He committed suicide. And we're wanting the files on the Epstein, but it just seems to be slow walk through, and will we ever see them? Hillary's just shown her hand. There's something in the files that she doesn't want to be seen.
Right.
Now, was it a cheap shot of Elon, or was it partially in frustration a way to sit there and say, you know what? Let's sit there and make a big deal about this, because there's nothing there that's going to hurt you. Let's make the demand to get those files out. Got to have them right now, and then when they get out, the cat's out of the bag. In other words, it's a little bit of a game.
I think it's a big part of the game, actually. One of the people who was following along, right, on this Twitter thing, obviously thinks like we do, responded, "They took the bait," meaning that Trump and Musk planned this feud to get the Democrats to ask for the Epstein files to be released. Up until now, they've been quiet about the Epstein files. They haven't, they've kind of suppressed the idea of even releasing them, because I think they know that a number of their people are on that, that list.
Yeah. And, there is no story there for Trump. And, he flew in the Lolita. Like you said, his plane was being serviced. He had to get home. Could you, do a pickup stop in New York? Yeah, sure we can, because Epstein made friends with everybody, even, especially people with money and influence, and Trump would be one of them. From what I know, Trump wasn't on the island. As far as the cheerleader thing goes, Jim, I'm sure in your illustrious career, you've had pictures with cheerleaders. I know I've been with the 49er not been with the 49er cheerleaders, but, I've got pictures at parties with them. I have some, with, the Patriot cheerleaders. I mean, it just happens. You go, yeah, I'll do a publicity thing, and you're there with a drink in your hand going, hey. So what? It's nothing. But it was something to make, it just seemed like
you have to remember, Bill,
superficial shot.
Donald Trump probably has his picture taken 200 times a day. And for most of his adult life, it's probably been that way.
Oh.
Everywhere he goes, if someone says, "Oh, Mr. Trump, I love your show. Can I have a picture?" I mean, he has got pictures all over the place, going back to his youth. So,
somewhere in his celebrity stardom, he's probably had a picture taken with RuPaul. Does that make him gay or transgender? No, it doesn't. It just means that they might have been. Now, I don't know if there is one, but I'm just saying, chances are, if there's a celeb out there, no matter who they are, he's probably had a picture with him, because he has been a household name well before he ever thought about politics.
Well, it'll be interesting to see where this goes. Now, I don't know whether this is going to, continue on, or whether it's going to go by the wayside. I know that. I think that you're going to find that it dissipates. I mean, just remember, last Friday, he was getting the key to the White House in the Oval Office. I'm talking about Musk from President Trump. I think this. Go ahead.
Last night, the story came out that Elon agreed that he and Trump ought to
Make peace. Yeah.
Yeah. So all of a sudden, for all the negatives that were spewed, and they were targeted negative pieces like the one about the Epstein, I thought, well, that's kind of interesting because there's no story there. But, they threw it out there. So it could be. And, based on everything else and Hillary having a fit, she's going, oh, we got, there's things you can do and things you can't. And we can't do that because it implicates her. It implicates Bill. And, you might say, well, Hillary could be the innocent spouse.
Yeah.
She was not an innocent girl. Let me tell you, folks, she is not an innocent girl. I got a groundskeeper outside the window right now doing his thing.
That's okay. Billionaire Trump. I can't hear it, Bill. Billionaire Trump supporter Bill Ackman later in the day, tweeted on X that Elon Musk should make peace for the benefit of our great country, and Musk responded by saying, "You're not wrong." So I think that it's going to go by the wayside. I think it's going to be, but now, there's something more to this. Bill Clinton, who was on The View, coincidentally, I think it was the day before yesterday, before this big brouhaha, I love that, brouhaha started, and I'm going to play the short clip. Bill Clinton is concerned right now, big time, about the courts holding up, because I think he's afraid that the courts are going to either release the Epstein files or some hammer's going to fall, or they're going to start ruling a lot in favor of Trump and give Trump more power. I think that Clinton is nervous. And now you have to ask yourself, why is this man who was the president of the United States racing over to the studios of The View to sit around that coffee clutch with those, ridiculously silly women? And I say that honestly, and they're not terribly. They may have great. I think Sonny Hostin has a law degree or something. Maybe I'm wrong, but they're not.
She didn't know how to use it or doesn't.
Whoopi Goldberg has been up until she started working on The View. She had some really good acting roles and was a good actress. I think of her part in Ghosts, which was magnificent, and so she has talent, but she doesn't have political brains. No political skills, in my opinion. But anyway, why would Bill Clinton, who for the longest time in his adult life, whether it be warranted or not, enjoyed a respect from people far and wide? I mean, even after his dalliances were made known, people cut him slack and still gave him this deference that I don't think he deserved. But now he's going over to places like The View to express his opinion about stuff. And he said this, it's a very short clip. He said this one thing which really stuck out to me. Listen.
Are you confident that the courts will hold? And what concerns you most about what he's doing now?
That the courts won't hold until we have the midterm elections.
Do you hear what he said?
Midterm elections, the courts won't hold because when that's cat's out of the bag.
Listen one more time.
Are you confident that the courts will hold? And what concerns you most about what he's doing now?
That the courts won't hold until we have the midterm elections.
That to me is striking, that the courts won't hold until we have this. This says to me that he just admitted that all of these decisions, all of this legal interference that Trump is running into is a leftist staged plan. It's purposeful.
There's something they don't want us to know. That's all there is to it.
No, but
pretty simple.
It's not just something they don't want us to know. You're right, Bill. It's something they don't want us to know. But it's an orchestrated roadblock. It's an orchestrated roadblock by the left. Clinton knows about that, and I think he's afraid that, like, for example, the Supreme Court may come down any time and say, hey, you district judges, knock it off, stay in your lane, rule in your district, and stay out of national affairs. And if that happens, that is to me, which has to happen, but that also makes it a lot harder for the left to hide their wrongdoings. We are living in an absolutely strange world right now. What you and I see on the surface, what we're seeing in the news on the day-to-day stuff, nonsense. Even this Elon Musk, Donald Trump thing is noise, but I think it's intentional on the part of both men. I do not think, I could be wrong, I do not think that they don't like each other. I think that they must have sat down. Musk was at Mar-a-Lago this past weekend at a party, laughing with the president. Don't you think that there are times when Musk and the president sat down in a corner somewhere and said, we gotta get this, we gotta loosen this ice. There's a roadblock here, and we gotta loosen this up. How do we do that?
Well, there's a lot of big ice out there. I mean, even the big, beautiful bill has got lots of ice in it because, you sit there are some great things on that, and there are benefits that are in there that should never go away and should never have been part of the discussion, but they are. And there are things in there that we need. And I understand we have to spend money sometimes to reduce a deficit and make money. I get that. But there is some crap in that bill. And, it always happens. And maybe some of this is to get focused by them.
Well, it's funny you should mention the big, beautiful bill. Greg Gutfeld yesterday on the 5 was talking about the Elon Musk, Donald Trump, dust up. And he talked about the big, beautiful bill, and he talked about what he thinks really is going on. Listen.
I think what you're seeing is a battle between the purist and the pragmatist. I don't like it. I want it to stop. I want to tell them if they're both watching, knock it off. We're done with this. This is an incredible moment for our country. It's awake. It's optimistic. It's on board with the golden age. Don't sabotage it with the self-inflicted feud. Don't let the Dems get back up from the floor where they belong. You got two really successful people, billionaires, and they both, I guess, have egos, but they also have different ways of seeing things. The great thing about this is we all see it. This is an incredibly transparent administration. This isn't a bug in the system. This is the system. So I want you to compare this system to the one, that ended in 2020. Would you take a forceful president and a billionaire publicly feuding in public, over an invalid president, who was kept hidden from the public, leaving the country without a leader? So I'll take this any day. At least I know what's going on and I can somewhat enjoy it, but I want him to stop. I've had it. This is it's like I don't want to see my parents fighting. I just want them to get back to, I like Batman and Robin. I don't like Spy versus Spy. Can I finish up on all the outrage over the travel ban and stuff? This is a collision between adult actions and childish ideals. The hysterics have gone without adult supervision for so long. And the muscle of deterrence have atrophied. They don't know what it's like. That's why every time Trump takes an adult action, it's like a big bucket of ice water on their head. But the travel bans, the deportations, the criminal roundups, these are a course correction necessary after 4 years of children running the candy store, doling out benefits and cash to everybody. They happily forfeited the adult role to be basically a global Santa Claus. I mean, you could have protected the country. This wouldn't have happened, but now the adults are in charge.
Okay, that's Greg Gutfeld's thoughts on that. And it's an interesting approach. It's two alpha males seeing things differently. A pragmatist and a guy who's somebody who's a bit more, he's just at a different point of view. These guys look at the
same
big,
objective, different views.
Yeah, I think Trump looks at the big, beautiful bill, and there's a lot of stuff, by the way, in the big, beautiful bill that really is big and beautiful. I mean, it's great stuff. Trump has done a good job on a lot of this, but there's also a lot of stuff that really shouldn't be in there.
Well, sometimes to get to the cure, you got to endure a little pain. We loafed into this debt over the years. We were lied to, told many different things. We're in debt. This country is seriously ill. Can it be recovered? Yes, it can. It's still the strongest nation on the planet, but it won't be for long if we don't take our medicine now. And the medicine is not going to be good, and you're going to feel it a little bit. But wouldn't you rather take our lumps now and get over it and move on?
Steve Bannon has a whole different thought on Elon Musk. Steve Bannon.
He didn't like him.
No, he doesn't like him, and he doesn't trust him. Listen.
Elon Musk is working for himself. President Trump empowered him more than anyone's ever been empowered in this government, had his back, promoted this guy. And when people like me who said, you're making a mistake, right? This is a bad guy. He's going to turn on you. He's not with us. He's also totally incompetent. And President Trump said, hey, give this guy a shot. And I trust President Trump's judgment enough to say, as people know, I backed off a little, right? Not a lot, I backed off a little. But it's not about observations. As soon as he didn't think he ran the deal or got the adoration, right, that he was starting to be saying, where's the $1 trillion, right? What is this? He turned on President Trump. He turned on MAGA. But most importantly, he turned on the country and the American people. And President Trump just had enough of it. Yeah. And he forced his way back in to have like some last day. They didn't want to do that. But fine. And then as soon as President Trump comes out today, and President Trump saying it in the nicest way possible about the bill, right? The bill, bing, bang, bang. The guy gets up and starts tweeting the most vicious stuff you could tweet. So all the fanboys defend this. He accused President Trump of basically being a group with those pedophiles on the island. He called for the president to be impeached and J.D. Vance to take his role. As hard as we've worked in all the years that we've worked in this audience's work, some punk is going to sit there and go, he should be impeached. And hey, as sure as the turning of the earth, if those progressives rub up on him and say, hey, they're never going to buy the Teslas, we're going to buy the Teslas, they rub up on him, he'll write a $500 million check for Hakeem Jeffries. He'll be across the thing looking to impeach President Trump, looking to help steal the 28 election, looking to imprison President Trump. So here's my point.
Okay, let me just say something. I was thinking about this earlier. If he implied with this whole Epstein thing, I'm talking about Musk, that Trump might be actually into little kids, pedophile. My question
he didn't say that.
My question is this: why would Elon Musk bring his 4 or 5-year-old son X into the Oval Office so many times, and at times leave him alone with President Trump? If the guy's a pedophile, do you bring your kid into a room with a pedophile if you really think he's a pedophile? Of course you don't. I think Elon Musk got PO'd. Yeah, heck, he might have gone back to his place, had one too many, and figured, well, I'll fix him. And I think, by the way, in that Twitter, or I keep calling him Twitter, that X message where he said maybe it'd be a good idea if you're not wrong, about getting back together. Maybe he was sobering up and realizing, oops, what the hell have I done? Or then again, maybe it's all planned, Bill, like we were talking about earlier.
Well, let's go to the plan. Everybody the Dems have always said, Trump was on the plane. Trump was on the plane. There's a reason, but Trump was on the plane. But not everybody knows and understands that. They also went after Musk. He's got government contracts and subsidies and whatnot and things like that. So Trump attacked him on that and goes, I don't know, I was going to cut those. And he knew that from day one. I don't know why Biden didn't do it. Maybe what they were doing is taking these things that the Democrats are trying to bully them, have been trying to use against them, and they had a little stage spat, if we want to go with that. And they put those cards on the table, and now they're going to sit there plus they may have just, by playing this game, have opened up the Epstein thing because Hillary came out and said, what are you talking about? We don't want to release those files. Okay, why don't you want to release those files? There's more to this than meets the eye. And, I've had spats with friends but they didn't if it was a small thing, it blew up overnight, but nobody said anything negative like that. If negative words went out there and went for a while, it lasted a while.
If he implied impeachment, or if he implied that Trump was on Epstein Island, then are these things that he can walk back? Are these things that Trump will forgive him for? I mean, you kind of show, unless it was a planned action that was designed to draw out the left. You know, what happened as a result of this little spat is the left is now calling for the release of the Epstein files. They weren't calling for it the day before yesterday. So you have to wonder, was this planned by Musk and Trump, stage a nasty little, a spat, get all the cockroaches to come out, turn the lights off, get them all to come out, and then turn the light on quickly and watch them scatter,
Now, what happened yesterday that might not be known? You might have woke up this morning and have no clue about it, because we're talking about the fight between Musk and Trump.
Well, I was just about ready to go to another story. I think it could be the same story, Bill.
Well, could it be retaliation?
Yes, it could be. But before we do that, let's remind our audience to like and share our show, where we move from one platform to another, and we have to kind of rebuild our audience because of that move. You say, well, why did you move? You guys were doing so well on the other platform. True, but we monetized our program. We have some commercials because we need to subsidize our show. We've been doing this for over 3 years, in our 4th year now, and we've been carrying the weight of the show on our shoulders. And now, we figured, hey, we have an audience.
We didn't make any money over there.
Yeah.
That's all there was to it.
Yep. So anyway, if you would please tell your friends about the show, like and share.
Wake up on the right side with Right Side Coffee.
Available at rightsideshop.com. Yes, Bill, we were talking about retaliation. Why don't you explain to the audience what happened?
Well, apparently, Russia said they will have to answer that drone attack. And while, Zelensky and the world, we blew up some classic hardware there, some stuff that's irreplaceable, $7-8 billion worth of planes, 60% or something like that of their strategic bombers. That hurts, but, they blew up hardware. Russia said, we'll retaliate. So they did a missile strike.
Yep.
And I don't know that it might not still be going on, but when I saw the video of that, now, I've seen missile strikes before and bombs go off, and they're pretty big and impressive. But you could be a couple of miles away and see a shockwave cloud coming at you and blowing things over. And I'm not going to imply, if that was, a limited thing or not. But either way, they're scorching the earth there right now in Kiev. And so they're blowing up,
the public utilities and things like that, the infrastructure. Yeah. What I also heard, that they're giving people in Kyiv, citizens, a way to leave without being hurt.
Right.
The Russians are. But they have set up, I was told this, they have set up troops at angles on the border. So they're going to attack in a pincer movement. They're going to come in from both sides at the same time. Apparently, it's going to be a massive invasion. They're softening the ground up now with missiles, and they are going to take a good part of Kyiv's infrastructure down. And Russia is serious now. It's like they've said, enough is enough. The gloves are off. You did this. You embarrassed us. Took a third of our missile-carrying bombers off our plate. Billions of dollars worth of damage. And I will never understand, Bill, how Russia allowed container trucks from Ukraine to get so close to those air bases undetected.
Well, that implies there's somebody that is on the wrong side on their side. They've got a snake in the den there that they got to get rid
Yeah.
of. There's also that big critical bridge that
Yeah,
the Ukraine once blew up, and this
Yeah.
time they did a pretty good puncture on it.
in Crimea. Yeah, right.
Yeah, and that's a critical bridge for Russia. So all of that was, that's painful. That hurts.
Well, again, Bill, I thought when I first heard that it was a missile strike on the bridge. No, it wasn't. They went to that bridge. I'm talking about Ukraine.
It set explosives.
Days before and set explosives on that bridge.
So how did they get away with that?
I don't know. I do
There-
not know. And you would think, by the way, if that's the only access to that area, through over that bridge, you might think that during a war, there's like a patrol boat whose only job is to go back and forth patrolling the bridge area to make sure that there isn't what we just saw happen. There's no.
I've left the country before, where I've gone down to Mexico or, South America, and you
Yeah.
drive and going through borders. Gee, there's guards there. Wow, imagine that. Same thing going up north, and I'm sitting there, and I've been over in Germany and different things over in that area. And I'm sorry, but a bridge is as uncritical as it may be. There was somebody there. If it's bridging the gap between two adversaries, that there just is, and even if they're not, they guard those bridges. So the fact that somebody got through means somebody said, "Yeah, go on through," and that if I were Putin, I'd be going, "Who is my traitor?"
From what I was able to ascertain, the charges were planted at water level or just below, which says to me that they were probably taken in by divers underwater. Probably, maybe they were dropped off a distance away, and they swam the charges to the site and connected them and swam back.
Well, yeah, it could have been a pleasure boat that has a hatch in the bottom, a diver's
Yeah.
hatch, where you can go right through the bottom of the hull of the boat, down underwater. You don't see them. They go swim over. They do their thing. They swim back to the boat. They take off their wetsuit, get on the deck in their bathing suit, and sit there and sip a latte. I don't know.
Well, whatever it was effective. It's made the bridge impassable because the pylons, even though they haven't collapsed totally, the bridge is now weakened to a point where cars and trucks can't go over. So it's useless. And that's the same bridge back in 2014. The Ukrainians did the same thing. They blew it up, and it was out of business for like a year and a half. So it's going to be out of business for a while. I would imagine they're going to have to put up some kind of temporary bridge to get stuff over, either that or have some kind of a ferry boat system.
Well, I got to ask you, did the Ukraine have that big of a military where they had a Navy and a diving program? Or did we send over SEALs or some elite divers to go do it for them?
It may not have been us. It might have been NATO. I'm thinking more NATO.
Yeah.
Here's the other thing I heard about the Ukrainian war. NATO's is they're talking now about, well, it's done. We're going to have to allow Ukraine into NATO.
No.
If that happens,
It's war.
It is war.
It is war.
Yeah. Do you want to know another thing, Bill? It's now pretty common knowledge. Trump said this. He knew absolutely nothing about this secret strike on the airplanes that was performed last weekend by Ukraine. Now, mind you, their key ally, us, kept out of the loop and completely in the dark. And Trump finds out, I guess, after the fact from his either advisors or from the media. And I would have been, if I were Trump, I would be really PO'd. If I were PO'd at Zelensky before, I'd be really PO'd right now. Talk about mud in his face, And I think if they are going to allow Ukraine into NATO, I would say then we drop out of NATO. It's as simple as that. You allow them in. The day you allow Ukraine in is the day we leave NATO. It's not going to happen because it's going to start another war. And by the way, if they do go to war, if I was thinking about this last night too. I do a lot of thinking when I'm trying to get to sleep. If they go in like they're doing now, going into Ukraine, I'm talking about the Russians, and the fighting becomes intense and there's more missiles flying and stuff like that, it would not surprise me at some point if things are getting really difficult for Russia that they decide, oh, to hell with it, and they use a limited yield, either nuclear bomb. I still hesitate on that. But, they have bunker buster bombs and mother of all bombs, just like we have, that aren't nuclear, but they might as well be, because they'll take out city blocks, in one fell swoop. It wouldn't surprise me if they start using stuff like that all of a sudden one misses by accident and hits Poland or something like that. Because and it will be done by Ukraine. Because Ukraine wants to draw NATO into the war. And if Russia's in the middle of fighting close to the Polish border, who's to say that Ukraine doesn't do something like this to say, hey, look they're going to come after you too, see? Mm-hmm. So these are very tenuous times. And I don't think you can trust our news media to give you the honest-to-God truth. I think our news media sucks, to be honest with you. I think they fall down big time.
Well, they'll be talking and yakking this weekend. What about, I don't know. And, the day's not over. You had that Russian attack last night on Kiev, and it might still be going on, or they're getting ready to do more. So this could be a big news weekend leading up to.
What you said is true, though. It was kept in the dark, basically. Mm-hmm. Maybe the biggest story yesterday wasn't Elon Musk and Donald Trump and their spat, although that's like watching an episode of a soap opera. Mm-hmm. When you really think about it, who the hell cares, right? I mean, when you really think about whether Elon and Donald really like each other anymore, it's like an episode of some soap opera. To hell with it. Who cares? I mean, the world is about ready to explode. People are dying. And this stupid ass, pardon my French, these idiots in the media, they want to talk about the soap opera. Oh, do you think Donald really meant it? Do you think it's over for Elon? Oh, my gosh. Hey, folks, get over it. Get over it. If they don't like each other anymore, so be it. If Elon decides to spend his money elsewhere, so be it. Thank you, sir, for all of what you've done to this point, and we appreciate anything you do in the future. And if you don't like President Trump anymore, that's unfortunate, but keep an open mind. Mm-hmm. And move on. Move on. That's not the important stuff. And by the way, to me, I still go back to what we were saying a little while ago. I still think Elon and Donald, they sat down and said, how do we draw the weasels out of the woodwork? And do weasels go into woodwork?
I have no idea. I've never really tracked the life of a weasel. I've watched Democrats, but
yeah, it's true.
And there is some,
similarity. I know. Yes.
Yeah, there really is. But
hey, there's a program, Bill, that was implemented initially in the Obama administration called Quiet Skies.
Mm-hmm.
Are you familiar? Are you familiar with that program? Do you know what it was?
Vaguely. No, I really didn't follow it.
Yeah, what it was, if I remember this correctly, they would have, let's say you bought a ticket, and somebody in government said, that Bill Knight fella, I don't know about him, so we got to watch him. So put a notice out to the U.S. Marshals, the Air Marshals. If he flies in an airplane, let's just keep an eye on him, all right? So you'd buy a ticket wherever you're going and get on the airplane, and there'd be an air marshal on the plane. And little would you know that while you're flying, that air marshal is paying attention to everything you're doing, what you're reading, he's watching your every move and making notations. Then when he's done and you get off the plane, he hands over his, quote, notes to TSA or whatever, and they then forward it on to some other government entity, and you are being literally followed all around. I'm talking about if you're on a vacation.
They're tracking you.
They're tracking your every move. Case in point, they used to do it to Tulsi Gabbard.
Yeah.
Tulsi Gabbard, she's now a cabinet member in the Trump administration, but when she was a representative, they were going after her. Kristi Noem, she did a little video yesterday, and here's what she said.
I'm Department of Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem, and today I'm announcing that TSA is ending the Quiet Skies program, which involved having a federal agent follow U.S. citizens as they traveled by air. It was created by Obama in 2012 to supposedly track dangerous individuals, but instead it was weaponized against political enemies such as Tulsi Gabbard. And since its existence, it has failed to stop a single terrorist attack, while it costs U.S. taxpayers roughly about $200 million a year. Now, the Department of Homeland Security and TSA have uncovered documents, correspondence, and timelines that highlight the inconsistency of the application of Quiet Skies. And this program, under the guise of national security, has targeted political opponents and benefited political allies of the Biden administration. In addition to conducting our own internal investigation, I'm calling for a full and thorough congressional investigation to uncover further corruption that's in this program. So TSA is going to continue performing important vetting functions to stop security threats and to ensure the safety of the American traveler. The Trump administration will return TSA to its true mission of being laser focused on the safety and the security of traveling public. This includes restoring the integrity, the privacy, and the equal application of the law for all Americans.
You know, what was interesting about that Quiet Skies thing is if they were following you on that one trip, right? Once the trip was over and they released it, they would then put you on an enhanced screening directory. Meaning while you were on that directory, you always got extra attention from that point on.
Yeah, they cataloged you. I mean, that's and that is BS. But then again, that's when you live in an authoritarian state. They call the right Nazis. And
do you remember what Obama said just before he was sworn in? He had a rally, and he got up on the stage and said, "We're on the verge of fundamentally changing our country as we know it." And we all, we thought, "Oh, that's interesting." He meant it in a different way. He meant it, we're ripping your old democracy apart, and we're going to start, implementing some socialist changes.
Well, Trump may be the last stand of democracy. That's why the Epstein files are so important. That's why this big, beautiful budget is so important. There's so many things. But see, there's a lot of irons in the fire here, and which one do you tend to? Because they're all important.
Dan Bongino was on Sean Hannity's show a couple of days ago, and he talked about, and if you think that Kash Patel and Dan Bongino are just sitting around their offices, with their feet up, thinking about, isn't it great being in the federal government now working? By the way, Bongino took a hell of a pay cut. When he was working as the host of the radio show and doing his podcast, he was seven figures, and now he's about $200,000 maybe a year.
Well, the Democrats like to say he took it so he could be on the take and have a cush job, and that, they're speaking from how they look at a government job.
Yeah, here's what Bongino said about cities and how they're being protected by the new FBI.
We can't have New York, D.C., or L.A. go boom. Obviously, we wake up every day, Kash and I in that briefing. That's always going to be priority number one. But kind of co-equal priorities right now underneath that, the massive cyber threat, the counterintelligence threat. You just accurately indicated the number of people that were that flooded in through the southern border and some through the northern border as well. There are people here, let's be very clear, who want to do bad things. I think that's fairly obvious. We have our FBI teams out there at 4 a.m. and 5 a.m. They can tell you, and they're happy to do it, out there working with HSI, ERO, and removing these people from the country while still preventing a terror attack, investigating terror attacks that do happen. And I'm going to add another thing, Sean. We're not the Federal Bureau of freaking word games anymore, okay? It's the Federal Bureau of Investigation. When some guy shows up at a scene, and I'm getting an intel stream from our information center that indicates he threw an incendiary device, okay, while screaming very specific words with multiple witnesses and video, we're damn well going to investigate it. Listen to me, investigate it as targeted violence and a terror attack. You don't like it, you don't have to follow my official Twitter. But I saw a whole bunch of people losing their minds. What the hell you want us to investigate it as? A freaking grand larceny auto? We're investigating it as a terror attack because that's the information we have. And we're not going to start playing euphemisms games and word games anymore. We're not doing it. We're the Federal Bureau of Investigation, and we're going to investigate properly.
And it's what he's essentially saying, it's a new era for the FBI. He said something interesting. What Sean Hannity said, did the government lie to us? Were we lied to by the government in the previous administration? Listen.
Out information that the government lied to us?
Damn right you are. And we're all over that. The minute I got in there in that job, I said, hey,
they purposely lied to the American people. They purposely
you're gonna
lied
find
to
out.
us.
Yeah, listen, that's the one I'm the most optimistic about. I was pretty clear on my social media account that I ordered that case immediately to be looked into again. We have a great investigator on it, and I think we should see action on that one shortly.
My question is, are any of these bad people going to be punished for their lies, for their lying to the American people, or is it just going to be, yeah, he lied to us, now what? Is it going to be something more substantive than a slap on the wrist?
Probably, yeah, he lied to us. Let's move on. That's always the way it is. I'd love somebody to prove that wrong.
No, you're absolutely right. When it's the left doing the bad stuff,
they get away with it every time.
Yeah, and when it's the right not doing the bad stuff, but being told by the left that they are, then they're punished anyway. I mean, we talked about it the other day. Maxine Waters was fined $68,000 for campaign violations, spending money she shouldn't have, that was not allocated to her to spend. And the same thing was implied against Trump. And Trump got 32 counts against him. It's like, holy smokes.
Well, if a Democrat tries to steal an election and they get caught, they might get a mild slap on the wrist for getting caught, and that's about it. If a Republican is just accused of stealing an election, oh, they got to swing from a rope for that, and that's just the way the Democrats look at things.
Bongino was asked about James Comey. Listen.
You brought up the other directors. Comey, as a matter of fact, the guy who has a lot to say, ironically, about me and Cash, and that's fine. That's he's allowed an opinion. He is a free American citizen like anyone else. But we found items. I addressed this on Fox and Friends, and I can go into a little bit more detail, but we found things. We found documents that were not where they should have been, and they were not good, flattering documents for Jim Comey. So the hubris displayed from a man like Jim Comey, who disgraced the FBI numerous times with his role in Crossfire Hurricane and other abominations, it's just kind of stunning that he continues to attack our leadership when we have to clean up the mess Jim Comey created as we continue to find stuff from his era and vintage.
Okay, so the thing is, they do the investigating, and they put the cases together, and they submit it to the Justice Department next door. It's up to Pam Bondi to do something, not to sit around and talk about what she's going to do, not to go on Fox like she loves to do. She goes on Fox, and by the way, she's an attractive woman. She looks like she fits on Fox. She's articulate. She very well may be auditioning for some kind of anchoring position in the future on Fox. Who knows? But she sure had better get off her tuchus and start acting like a powerful and a powerful and effective attorney general. That's
Yeah.
not happening right now. Right now, it seems that she's all talk and no action, if you know what I mean.
But she did pretty good work before, so what's the holdup now?
Well, she was also the attorney general of Florida, so it's one thing to be the attorney general of a state. It's another thing to be the attorney general of the country. Bongino was asked about where do you see the FBI in 1 year?
A year from now, I want the FBI to have played a key role in the deportation of hundreds of thousands of violent criminals from the United States. I want the FBI to have thwarted multiple terror plots that we can't tell you about every day. Sean, every morning we do a briefing, Cash and I, with our ops directors. We can't sit here and take a victory lap every time something doesn't go boom. Matter of fact, we almost never do it because we can't. I want to make sure that our counterintelligence operation is top-notch, that the ever-present threat of the Chinese Communist Party infiltrating our systems, cyber spying on us, that by the end of the year we've made significant progress. I want to be sure the drone threat, that we've taken action on it, not just talked about it. We're getting money, assets, and teams in place, and I want to be sure we can look back to the American people and say, look, with President Trump's leadership, Attorney General Bondi and Director Patel, the murder rate is at a historic low. Crime rates have gone down.
Okay.
The border is sealed, and your FBI took a part in that.
Wow. I hope he's right. I hope it's where they're at in a year. I'm not seeing it just yet. At this point of the game, and again, we're only, about 3.5 months?
4 months, yeah.
Yeah, 4 months into the Trump administration, the new one.
Yeah, but, that doesn't sound like a long time, but it is because, we talk about the midterms. I mean, that it's so damn close. I mean, come October, all eyes will shift to the midterms. And the Democrats, like Bill Clinton said, they got to get to the midterms because they plan on stealing it. The Epstein files come out, may not happen. Other things happen, may not happen. This big, beautiful bill, they want nothing more than to tank the bill and tank the economy. And it is the Democrats that want to see, Medicare go, down the toilet.
They want to see more taxes.
They want to see more taxes. And, the funny thing is, they'll spend more money, cost us more taxes, and still say, well, we got to cut Social Security. I'm sorry, your Medicare benefits are going to have to be dwindled down. They never have a solution that doesn't cost the American people, tenfold.
I was there was a really good economist and philosopher, a guy named Milton Friedman.
Mm-hmm.
Milton Friedman, he passed away, I guess, been 20 years or so. Maybe I'm wrong. I'll have to check on the date, but he's no longer with us. But he was a very articulate, very thoughtful guy, and he was a guy who really thought ahead. And it was a function he was on. He was talking about taxes. Listen.
The real tax on the American people is what government spends. If the federal government spends $450 billion and only raises $400 billion in taxes, who do you suppose who pays that other $50 billion? Do you suppose the tooth fairy does? Inflation is, from this point of view, a form of taxation. If government spends more than it takes in, it has to meet the difference, either by printing money or by borrowing from the public at large.
Yeah, he passed away in 2006.
Right.
Very thoughtful guy, and he's right. If the government, it's like has an insatiable appetite. If you give the government more money in taxes, it will spend it, and then it'll actually spend more than that amount of money. It's not satisfied just spending what you give it. Mm-hmm. It will take what you give it and then eat yours too, and yours too. It'll overeat. The government has an insatiable appetite. He talked about.
Well, yeah, you run your personal budget. You talked about this the other day. Your mother taught you how when you were young. Hey, you know what? You write down a budget and you put it on dates so that you can sit there and you'll be fine. But our government doesn't do what we have to do as individuals, because if we sat there and said, well, I'll just go into debt. I'll do this. I'll spend money I don't have. Someone's coming to pick up your car and they're going to lock you out of your house. But that doesn't happen with the government.
It doesn't happen with the government because they print the money. They really never really go broke because they have the press. And
they got guns and weapons to back up their honesty.
Yes, that's a very good point. That's true. We forget about that. They also have the guns, and when you have the guns, but they want
to take them away from us.
That's true. I was just going to say that they want your guns.
Think about that for a minute.
You shouldn't have guns, but the government.
Because if you wake up one day, you might want to use it on them.
Do you remember what Biden did? Geez. One of the first things Biden did when he was president. Do you know what he did?
What?
He armed the IRS agents.
Yeah, with guns.
No, well, you go for an audit, right? And you got a pistol-packing auditor. I mean, come on.
And if they got a big gun and they're sitting there going, let me ask you, Mr. Harrington.
Yes.
Is this deduction really, really important as they sit there and adjust the gun
they're polishing their pistol.
It's like, no, go ahead. I'll pay for that. Yeah.
Milton Friedman was also talking about inflation, too. Listen.
Inflation is made in Washington because only Washington can create money. And any other attribution to other groups of inflation is wrong. Consumers don't produce it. Producers don't produce it. The trade unions don't produce it. Foreign sheiks don't produce it. Oil imports don't produce it. What produces it is too much government spending and too much government creation of money and nothing else.
That's what we were just talking about, right?
Mm-hmm.
Too much government creation of money. But they have no problem doing it because, well, they needed some more money. They just need it. And they're the government. And like Bill said, they have the guns and they're going to print it. Oh, my God.
So can I get a printing press and print
No. You can't even think about it, Bill. You can't even. Do you remember those IRS agents with guns? Mm-hmm. They'll be at your door, as will the Treasury Department.
Let me go wash my mind out with soap and water
yes,
right now.
You should.
Even thinking about that or suggesting that, yeah.
Absolutely. Hey, a reminder, if you would take a moment, like and share the show, all right?
Wake up on the right side with Right Side Coffee.
Available at rightsideshop.com. Another big story yesterday that nobody's talking about because it affects the left. They found a third Biden auto pen. Did you hear about that?
Oh, really?
Yeah.
There's more.
Another auto pen. Not a third document signed with an auto pen. No, they got plenty of those. I mean, anyway, a third Biden auto pen, meaning they have maybe one in the White House. They might have one over at an office somewhere. Maybe they had one down in Delaware. I don't know, but they had at least three of them. There could be a whole bunch more for all we know. Carry them wherever you go. A Biden auto pen.
Well, how does an auto pen work? Okay, it probably scans a signature, studies it, and then it's just a computer algorithm or a little program that's written for something to control the pen, right?
Yeah. So it'll make a perfect copy of that signature of Joe Biden.
So somebody could get the parchment paper and sit there and print up a document, maybe pardon yourself, and sign it by Joe or Trump or anybody.
Sure. It's President Auto Pen, not President Biden. President Auto Pen. It's
there's a movie script for you. The guy that got away with the auto pen or something. I don't know.
Bill, the other thing I was going to mention is we really have got to be careful about what we think is real. Meaning, for example, we talked earlier about Elon Musk releasing the picture of Donald Trump with the cheerleaders, draped all over him. By the way, it was 1992 when that picture was taken. He was a very handsome guy, very handsome guy. He was much younger, like 30, 35 years younger, and he had the world by the tail, so to speak, figuratively speaking. And, but you can see pictures of anybody today in the most compromising situations, and you will absolutely believe that it's a real picture. I mean, there are pictures out there right now that everybody sees on a daily basis, and they're not real. They're just not. There was a time when if you photoshopped a document or a picture, you could say, well, I can really see the layering. there was I'm trying to think what the document was. Was it a passport or something? It was Obama. Remember when there was a big controversy about Obama being an American citizen for real? Maybe he was Kenyan, and somebody produced a birth certificate from Kenya, and somebody, a specialist, took that birth certificate and under microscopic examination was able to determine that it wasn't a real document because it was layered using Photoshop.
Yeah, it was cut and paste.
Yeah. Well, apparently that's gone by the wayside now with new AI technology. With AI technology, it looks first generation, absolutely positively real. I don't know how, Bill, people are going to live in a world where you can't prove the truth of something. I mean, someone will hand you a picture and say, see, he did it. Look he's in the picture doing it. And you'll look at the picture and it looks like the person in the picture is doing whatever he's doing, right? And you say, oh my God. But it may be 1,000% a lie, a work of fiction. I don't know how people can get along like that. You cannot even trust your eyes anymore.
You wonder, though, if some of the technology's been around for a while, because sometimes there are stories and narratives that get painted, and I'm going, that can't be true, but they have to have somebody be guilty so somebody else gets off the hook. So, in other words, I'm looking at lawfare and, because I watch cases when they come out there, and I'm going, this guy is innocent, but they paint the picture that he's guilty, and it's like you say, or like they say, when it's theater of the court. So
I just think that when you start throwing pictures around as proof, like Elon Musk did, I don't know. I think
staging. I don't know. There's more to that story than meets the eye. Let it
play out.
Just let it play out. And they're already talking about within a 24-hour period of it blowing up. They're saying, we need to talk and make things right. So what was the real purpose of it? Was it a ha-ha fooled you? Or was, we got him to look at this now?
God, who knows? Do you see where Megyn Kelly, she's a spitfire. I like Megyn Kelly. She does a program on Sirius XM, and also she has her own podcast. And she was talking about CNN's legal expert, Juliette Kayyem. And now you're saying who? I know. I said the same thing, but it's CNN's legal expert who, right after the attack in Boulder, came out and said, "Well, you can't believe the first stuff that comes out of a story. You got to give it time to play out, and you have to have more facts than what we have right now." Mind you, that swine who threw the Molotov cocktail, that pig who threw the Molotov cocktail, was screaming all these Zionist, anti-Zionist statements, and he was openly declaring verbal war against the Jews, but yet that wasn't good enough for the CNN legal expert. Listen to what Megyn Kelly says.
Listen to this person on CNN. Her name is Juliette Kayyem. She's CNN's law enforcement analyst. They're using that term very loosely. She worked for the Department of Homeland Security during the Obama administration.
That makes the FBI look so juvenile. Like, why are you getting ahead of the police chief who says, I don't know what this is? It sounds, maybe it is what we all think it is, but maybe it's not. And he has no incentive to get it wrong. So we're going to take a step back, not be responsive to tweets by two heads of the FBI who don't have a long history in local law enforcement, and we will wait.
You're an idiot.
And hope it isn't what we all worry it is, and if it is, then there'll be an investigation. But that's like nothing I'd ever seen before. And until we know that the victims were members of that of the Jewish event, we don't have the nexus.
Oh my God.
And I will believe the Denver police chief that they do not have that nexus now. And if they do, I will be the first one out here saying that that is a hate crime. But until we do, we all need to not follow the FBI's tweets.
You're an idiot. You're a partisan hack idiot. It's juvenile to state what everyone can easily see and hear for themselves. Okay? It was death to Zionists, shouting, "They are killers. How many children have you killed?" On and on. Death to Zionists. It seems pretty on the nose. And let's see, did he target a meeting of the NAACP so that we're kind of confused on the motive? No, he targeted a march that has been going on weekly now for years that is in support of the Israeli and American hostages being held by Hamas. Seems kind of on the nose. I wouldn't call it juvenile to respond with, "This was a terror attack."
Oh, she's a very smart young lady. That
Yeah, and it's more than kind of on the nose. It's dead on the nose. And what does it matter? What, if somebody goes and, death to you, and they throw a Molotov cocktail, or they hit you with a homemade flamethrower, their intent is to hurt or kill you. And their intent is hate. It's a hate crime, no matter how you want to call it. And this, in his case, was more specific. Let's not try to dance around anything. This guy is a criminal, and apparently, they're protecting him, his family, the whole 9 yards.
Don't you find it unusual how the left media, they want to hold back on criticizing the attacker, the swine, right? Let's wait until we have all the facts in, and then I'll be the first. No, you won't. If you wait until you hear it from that chief, you will be the last. That's what you'll be, Juliet. But the fact is, the people on the left, they are really anti-Israeli, anti-Israel.
There's an agenda they have, and you're right. They are anti-Israel.
Yeah, I can't believe it because, for the longest time, a big segment of the left was the Jewish community. I have to think that if you're Jewish and having been a Democrat, you have to be rethinking where you stand politically right now, because the only side that's standing up for you and what you believe in is the MAGA movement. God forbid those crazy MAGA people with those red hats. Yeah, they're standing with you and President Trump. I mean, it's unbelievable. If you're Jewish and you are anti-Israel, then you have got a situation where you're living in a life of self-loathing. You're almost embarrassed for being Jewish, which I don't understand. I grew up, I used to work in Manhattan. Many of my closest friends in Manhattan and broadcasting were Jewish. Never.
Yeah, so what?
No, it was never an issue. We never even considered religion. They were my buds, my friends, my pals. And all of a sudden, now it's some kind of a stigma for being Jewish. And you have these children at places like Columbia putting on these headscarves and chanting from the river to the sea and death, freedom for Palestine and all this stuff. You have to remember that it was Palestine. It was the Gaza Strip people who attacked the Israelis on October 7th of, 2023?
Yeah.
These children aren't being told the truth, and I call them children because if they're still in school, believe me, to me, they're children. They're infants. Somebody's not telling these people, and I think it goes, Bill, to education. They don't educate kids anymore. They don't give them honest to God history. They don't. There are some kids, Bill, who are graduating from college right now who don't know a damn thing about 9/11.
Well, that's ancient history. They don't want them to know about it. They want to erase history, change history. They want to change science. I mean, you look at the teaching now that transgender and gender affirming drugs are are just a norm. Hell, there's a company now, I forget the name of it. It trades on the U.S. Stock Exchange.
Oh, yeah.
And for $6,000, you're sitting there going, okay, I am going to be, what do they call that, in vitro fertilization? Yeah. They're going to do that. They can sit there and look at the embryo and say, oh, this person is going to be this tall if you use that embryo.
Yeah.
Is going to have these kind of genetic diseases, probably will only live to be this age, but they will have a low IQ. So, let's terminate that.
If they went by that rule 50 years ago, 100 years ago, guys like Stephen Hawking wouldn't have lived. Stephen Hawking was the brilliant scientist and thinker who started out being physically normal, and he got progressively sicker as he got older. And I think he was like in his 30s, and he was in a wheelchair, and in his 40s he had a hard time communicating, and but he still was a great thinker. His brain functioned well.
And this is not the first time. The Germans tried to do it, doing the superior race.
Yeah.
We tried to do it in the 50s. There was a big company that actually owned a makeup company, and they got into, I forget what it was called, interferon or something like that. But they had all these things that were going to build a super race. Yes, we did it here in the United States, and people came out kind of screwed up. They got this, the mothers that got these drugs, their kids were born deformed.
That was thalidomide.
Yeah.
Thalidomide, yeah. I remember that as a child. It was a big story because, like you said, they didn't have the advanced, what do they call, ultrasound that we have now, so they couldn't see the baby in utero back then. I'm talking about the 50s, and it was a surprise to everybody when the baby was born with no arms or no legs. A perfectly normal baby other than not having limbs. It might have some limbs, but not all of them. It was a tragic thing. But nowadays, with this organization you were just talking about, they would just simply say, abort that. Yeah, that's
well, why not just let nature, let it. There's a reason for every living thing, person, whatever, and there is. So,
well, like I said, Stephen Hawking would have been aborted if
there was a reason for him to be here.
Sure.
Now, wasn't there?
Yeah, sure
wasn't
was.
A beautiful person. He had so many disabilities, but he didn't let it stop his thinking.
Right.
And I don't agree with all his thinking.
Neither
He's
did
a smart guy.
Yeah.
But either way, does that mean I should erase him? No. He did a lot of great things. I don't believe everything that.
Guys like Nikola Tesla. I'm sure if you looked at him when he was a kid, he probably was a strange kid because he was thinking light years ahead of all of us.
He probably didn't, know how to mingle, assimilate into normal society.
Yep.
He couldn't relate to you because he was thinking on a different plane, a different level. That's just the way he was. But did that mean that he couldn't get along in society and be a benefit? Obviously, he was a great benefet.
You talked
about
Einstein. You talked about Hitler. Hitler did a lot of experiments on children, twins. Always, he and Mengele were always doing experiments with.
Go
ahead.
What famous pharmaceutical company benefited from a lot of that that's around today?
Which one was that?
Bayer.
Bayer was a German company.
Yes.
So there were a lot of big companies who were around and working for the Third Reich back in those days. One of the biggest steel companies in Europe, Krupp, was making all the material for their tanks and airplanes and stuff like that.
Speaking of which, you brought up steel.
Mm-hmm.
The tariffs. Now, all of a sudden, Canada has come to the table saying, hey, we need to talk. You see, 90% of their exports go to the United States, and now with the tariff on them going from 25 to 50%, they called and said, "Uncle, we need to talk."
Ooh, I saw an interview with the new president of Canada, and he was saying basically the same thing. we got to sit down face to face, either in Washington or up here, and kind of work this thing out, because you guys are our best neighbors, and the whole song and dance stuff, So we'll see where that goes.
Well, they're hurting is what they're doing. So with them hurting, they're going, okay, we've got to talk. It's time to end the charade. And, and when you look at things, United States has been getting screwed by tariffs by other nations for a long time. So stop the clown show with the Democrats and just get to reality.
Yeah.
Let's get it on a simple, plain, fair field, and let's go ahead and get our manufacturing going again. Takes a little while, but we are working on it. I had a weird thing about steel. I remember my dad talking about when he was a child. There were the junkyards. We had all these junkyards, scrap steel. Now, all of a sudden, one day, you saw it loaded up on boxcars and going out to the coast, and it got on ships. And he goes, Japan was buying it. But they did return it all with interest on Pearl Harbor.
Yeah.
And I thought, well, maybe part of the answer to the steel problem is recycling steel. But no, we've been shipping it away for years, and we sell it to, I think pretty much right now, it's India or Turkey, one of the two.
It would surprise me if that continues. I would think that Trump is going to make it harder for them to do that in the future. You see what a difference 3.5 months make, friends. The United States Army said it has hit its 2025 recruiting goal 4 months early. Think about that. This is the era of Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth, and President Donald Trump, very pro-soldier, pro-military enlisted person. And apparently it's being reflected in the number of people who are showing up at recruitment centers and signing up. This is good news. They were having a terrible time keeping people in the service under the Biden regime, but that's turned around. And Bill, what do you think? Do you think that I hear Musk was saying he was implying in one of his tweets, be careful which side you pick, meaning be his side or Trump's side. Trump is going to be around for 3.25 years or 3.5 years, and I'm going to be around for 40 years, he said with a smile, which I thought was a kind of a strange thing to say in one of his Twitter posts. But, there's no guarantee on life. I hope Elon knows that. And by the way, Elon, you plan on going to Mars, so, maybe by the time the dust settles on this regime, you'll be up on another planet somewhere.
Well, I would remind him, some of his rockets, early on when he was testing, they suffered some fatal failures.
Yeah,
and just recently, his heavy didn't do too well either. So,
right,
bad news can befall anybody, and life is a gift. You don't know how long Trump's going to be around. You don't know how long Elon's going to be around. What you want is to do the right things and at least leave something behind, a legacy, a good legacy, and put this country back in sound footing.
You see where House Oversight Chairman James Comer subpoenaed Biden's White House physician to testify on the growing auto pen and mental decline scandal. Apparently, he asked him, he said, come on over and just tell us what happened. And he did it informally. And the doctor, instead of taking that informal, his name, by the way, is Dr. Kevin O'Connor, instead of just saying, sure, I'll come over and we'll talk to you about it, he said, no, I won't. I'm not going to come. So that's why Comer said, oh, yeah? And he issued subpoenas. Now he, by law, has to show up. He has a congressional subpoena, so it will be interesting to see where that goes. I think he has to testify on June 27th. So
it'll be interesting to see what goes on. I apologize. If you don't hear it, there is a noise outside. The groundskeeper was 2.5 hours early today. So
you love a guy who's punctual. Cannot hear it, thank goodness, Bill. Your microphone is working magnificently.
Well, I can hear it. I mean, it's like,
the good news is we're done. We're done. So we can wrap this. You can go to the window, Bill, and flip that guy a bird if you want to. We're finished.
Yeah, well, that's true. And so is Lindsey Graham, by the way. It looks like his poll numbers are way down on the toilet. It looks like there's other Republicans that may be in line to take his place. So maybe soon he'll be saying what I'm saying right now.
What's that?
Hasta la vista, baby. We're out of here.
This is CRN America.